Alright guys, tonight we step into a history that's not easily forgotten. You find yourself walking toward the imposing gates of a castle, ancient stone rising above you like a giant sentinel from another world. The air feels heavier here, thick with the weight of the past. As the wind brushes against your skin, you catch the scent of salt water from the distant sea. It's not just the smell of the ocean, it's the lingering memory of so many stories that have washed in with the tides over centuries. The walls loom ahead, and the closer you get, the more you can feel the gravity of the place. The gates of these castles were once the final stop for many. Behind them, lives were about to be shattered, sold into captivity, moved across oceans, and thrown into lives they never could have imagined. A sense of unease stirs within you, knowing that with each step, you're walking where history's darkest chapters unfolded. You probably won't survive this history lesson without a heavy heart, but take a moment to think about the people who never had the chance to walk freely like you are now. And if you're still comfortable in your seat, let's dive into the past. But before we do, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and the local time. I'm curious to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As you approach, the towering gates of the slave castle rise above you, an eerie testament to the years of suffering it has witnessed. The stones that surround you are weathered by time, their surface cracked and scarred. These walls aren't just architectural marvels. They're silent witnesses, standing tall against the test of time. But no amount of wear can dull the painful history they've absorbed. If you could listen closely enough, maybe you'd hear the muffled cries of those who once passed through this very entrance, never to return. Your feet echo against the stone, the sound filling the silence around you. The castle's shadow falls over you, dark and cold, yet the sun's fading light gives the stone a warm, almost golden hue. It's a strange contrast, a place that has seen nothing but torment and yet still stands with a quiet dignity. You step forward, hesitant, yet strangely drawn to it. Each stone you pass is a marker of what once happened here. What was it like to be locked in this fortress, to never feel the warmth of freedom again? Historians still argue over the exact role these castles played in the larger transatlantic slave trade. But one thing is clear: this was no mere fortification. This was a holding ground, a place where human lives were bought, sold, and traded like cattle. You can almost hear the creak of chains in the distance, the desperate shuffle of feet, as the sickening reality of what this place was built for begins to settle in. As you walk, a sense of history presses down on your chest. How many souls passed through these gates? How many families were torn apart, never to be reunited? The castle feels like a monument, but not one of victory. No, this place isn't about triumph. It's a place of profound loss, of unimaginable pain. Every inch of the stone beneath your feet tells a story of resilience and sorrow, a juxtaposition you'll find hard to shake off. You might wonder, how many people like you stood in this exact spot, centuries ago? Were they as overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all, or were they numb from the unbearable reality they had to face? The sheer scale of what happened here is hard to comprehend, but one thing remains constant: you are part of a long line of people coming to understand this history. As you continue on, the breeze shifts. It carries the salty tang of the sea, a reminder of the ships that once sailed from here. You know, even today, the waves still crash against these shores, bringing with them the constant reminder of the lives that were changed forever. The air feels heavy, like it's holding on to something that doesn't want to be forgotten. And it won't be. Not tonight. You pass through the castle gates, and suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. The open courtyard stretches out before you, flanked by towering stone walls that seem to close in with every step you take. The ground beneath your feet is rough, the stones worn by centuries of use. It's strange to think that, once upon a time, this very place was bustling with the movement of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of enslaved people, waiting, hoping, fearing what was to come next. But now, there's nothing but the distant hum of the wind and the soft scrape of your shoes against the weathered stone. The silence here is overwhelming. You look around, taking in the ancient stone buildings that line the courtyard. These walls, once the backdrop to suffering, exploitation, and hopelessness, now stand as a reminder of human resilience. But even though they may look calm, you can't escape the haunting presence that clings to every corner. It's as though the walls are still holding on to the cries, the desperation, the despair of those who were once trapped within them. In the distance, a thick wooden door looms, and you instinctively feel drawn toward it. As you approach, a shiver runs down your spine. The heavy door is shut tight, as though it's keeping something from escaping, but you know better. You know what lies behind it. You've heard the stories, the rumors, the legends of those who never made it out. The stone walls, once slick with sweat, now seem like silent sentinels, guarding the secrets of the past. Historians still debate how many people passed through these gates. Some say it was in the hundreds of thousands, others suggest it was far more. Some records have been lost to time, while others have been intentionally erased. Yet, even the figures that remain are staggering. The numbers are enough to make your stomach tighten, to make you question how humanity could ever allow such horrors to unfold. And yet it happened. It's all around you now, the quiet echoes of what was. You stand still for a moment, reflecting on the weight of it all. How many lives were torn apart within these walls? How many families were never given the chance to say goodbye? As you feel the cool breeze on your face, the silence suddenly feels like it's pushing down on you. It's as though the castle itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to move forward, to keep walking, to bear witness to what came before. As you take that next step, you notice something strange in the air. There's a sense of unease, as if the walls themselves are whispering to you, calling you to listen more closely. You begin to hear faint, almost imperceptible sounds, footsteps, voices, the clinking of chains. Could it be the wind playing tricks on you? Or is it something more? Something deeper? Whatever it is, it feels all too real. You stop again, trying to shake the feeling. But it's not something you can easily shake off. A small group of tourists pass by, their voices cutting through the eerie quiet. They're laughing, joking, oblivious to the weight of what surrounds them. It's an odd contrast, and you can't help but wonder how many people have stood in this very spot over the years, not fully understanding what they were walking through. What would they feel if they could sense the history here the way you can? You look around at the stone walls again, taking in the old cannons that stand at the ready, pointing toward the sea. The cannons, relics of an age when this castle was a fortress in more ways than one, now stand as silent reminders of how power, fear, and greed shaped the lives of so many. And as you stand here, contemplating what has been left behind, you wonder, can we ever fully grasp the depth of the suffering that took place in these walls? Can we truly understand the trauma that still lingers in the air? One thing is certain. As you step deeper into the castle, you are no longer just a visitor. You are a witness. And what you're about to learn is something that will never leave you. You continue your walk, each step drawing you closer to the towering walls that stand before you, casting long shadows over the courtyard. The air grows heavier, colder somehow, and the temperature shifts as you approach the stone towers. It's as if the castle has a personality all its own, stoic, unyielding, and filled with an unspoken weight that presses against your chest. You can't help but feel small in its presence, like an intruder in a space where history's deepest scars are carved into every inch of stone. The castle's towering walls seem to stretch endlessly into the sky, rising above you like giants keeping watch over a forgotten world. You find yourself wondering how many souls must have gazed up at these walls before they were led inside. How many saw these same stone surfaces and felt the crushing weight of their fate pressing down on them. As you glance up, you notice a series of narrow slits in the walls, perhaps once used as windows, but now they only serve to create an eerie, narrowing view of the sky above. They feel like eyes constantly watching, as though the castle itself is holding your every movement under scrutiny. You stand there for a moment, feeling the eerie stillness, the quiet that fills this place. It's almost as if time stands still here, the walls bearing witness to centuries of pain, of lives that were traded for gold and profit. And then, as if you're standing in the shadow of something long dead, you think of the prisoners who passed through these very doors. The whispers of the past reach you, the imagined voices of those who were once held captive in these same spaces, now long forgotten by the world. As you walk along the outer courtyard, your footsteps echo, unnervingly loud against the silent walls. The stones beneath your feet are worn by time and countless lives that once walked this path. You notice that some of the stones are chipped and cracked, likely from the centuries of use. They seem fragile, yet they have endured, bearing the weight of history on their shoulders. You glance to your left and see a series of stone steps leading upward, the climb steep and narrow. This, you're told, is where those who were forced into the castle were often housed before being sent to the dungeons below. The very thought of it makes your stomach twist in a knot. You wonder how many people took these stairs in chains, their eyes filled with fear and uncertainty, never to see the light of day again. Historians still debate the significance of these castles within the larger system of the transatlantic slave trade, but one thing is certain: these walls were the last thing many saw before they were shipped off to lands unknown. The scale of the operation is staggering. These castles weren't just places of confinement. They were factories of human misery, churning out lives destined for a fate far worse than most could ever imagine. As you continue your walk, you pass a series of rusted iron bars that seem to belong to the cells, where the enslaved were kept before being loaded onto the ships. The bars stand as a grim reminder of the inhumanity that was rampant in this place. You can almost hear the clattering of chains, the muffled cries of those who awaited their fate, and the silence that filled these walls once the last of the prisoners were removed. But as the ghosts of the past begin to fade in the distance, you can't help but wonder, how much of this history has been forgotten? How many people have walked through these same grounds and failed to recognize the significance of the place? The reality of what happened here is overwhelming, yet you're not sure if the castle itself wants you to fully understand it. There's something in the silence, something oppressive in the way the walls loom over you, that makes it feel like the castle is testing you, daring you to face the truth. You stop for a moment to take it all in. The air is thick with the scent of salt and damp stone. You can almost taste it, a harsh reminder of the sea that once carried so many away from this place. The waves crash in the distance, the sound almost soothing in its consistency. But here, in the shadow of the walls, it only serves to heighten the silence that presses in on you. And then, you're drawn to a faint outline in the stone, the remnants of an old carving, barely visible, like a forgotten memory carved into the surface. You trace your fingers over it, wondering if it's the work of one of those who once lived here, a prisoner of this fortress. Perhaps they too sought to leave their mark on the walls of this place, to remind others that they existed, that their lives mattered, even if only for a fleeting moment. The air around you grows noticeably colder as you descend into the dungeons beneath the castle. It's a place that feels different from the rest, darker, quieter, and infinitely more suffocating. The stone steps you descend are uneven, worn down by the footfalls of countless individuals who once walked this very path. Their steps, slow and filled with dread, seem to echo through the ages, leaving a trace of their misery embedded in the stone beneath your feet. You reach the bottom, and the temperature drops significantly, the chills seeping into your bones. The dungeon is cold and damp, with moisture hanging heavy in the air. You can almost feel the despair that would have lingered here, how the walls once trapped countless people in unimaginable conditions. It's a stark contrast to the sunlight and open spaces you just left behind. Here, in the darkness, you can almost taste the fear that once filled the air, thick, suffocating, and oppressive. As you step further in, your eyes begin to adjust to the dim light. You see long, narrow cells carved into the stone, each one barely large enough to hold a single person. You try to imagine what it would have been like to be confined in one of these small, cramped spaces, locked away from the world with nothing but the damp stone for company. Historians still debate how long prisoners were kept here before being transported, but the accounts suggest that many spent weeks or even months in these cells, waiting for the moment when they would be sold, loaded onto ships, and sent to lands they would never see again. The cells, once filled with the cries of the imprisoned, are now eerily silent. Yet, as you stand there, you can almost hear their voices, faint whispers of those who had no choice but to endure. The coldness of the stone feels like a part of them, a piece of their suffering that has seeped into the very walls. You wonder if the stone remembers, if it carries the echoes of their lives, their pain. You stop at one cell, larger than the others, its door still intact. You place your hand on the cold iron bars, and for a moment, the feeling of the metal under your fingertips is all-consuming. It's as if the past is alive in that very moment. This cell, once the final holding place for many, is now a silent reminder of a reality that is so far removed from your own. You can't help but think of the people who spent their last days here, of the despair that gripped them as they waited for their fate. A chilling thought crosses your mind. How many never made it out of this dungeon? How many lost their lives in this very place? Their names forgotten by history, their deaths nothing more than another sad footnote in the long and tragic tale of the transatlantic slave trade. You think about the countless souls who were once held captive in these very rooms, each one with their own story, their own life, stolen from them in the blink of an eye. As you move through the dungeon, the walls seem to close in on you. It's not just the physical space. It's the weight of what happened here, the unbearable tension of so many lives lost, the injustice that unfolded within these walls. The deeper you go, the more suffocating it feels, until you can barely breathe, as if the past itself is trying to drag you into its depths. Historians argue over whether the full extent of the suffering in these dungeons can ever truly be understood. Some say the horror of it all is beyond comprehension, too vast for anyone to truly grasp. Others argue that it's our duty to understand, to face the uncomfortable truth of this history, no matter how difficult it may be. But standing here, in the very heart of the dungeon, you begin to understand that no amount of study or reflection can truly capture the depth of what happened here. The dungeon is a place where the human soul was broken, where hope was extinguished in the darkness. You pause again, your breath slow and steady, trying to steady yourself against the overwhelming weight of this place. It feels as though the walls are pressing in on you, But you know that the real weight is not the stone or the iron bars, it's the collective memory of those who suffered here, whose stories remain untold. It's their stories that hang in the air, filling the silence with a haunting presence that lingers long after the footsteps of those who now visit have faded. You can't stay here for long. The air grows heavier with each passing moment, and the sense of oppression is suffocating. You turn away from the cells and begin to make your way back toward the stairs. But as you do, you can't shake the feeling that something is following you, something that has been left behind by those who walk these halls before you. A part of you wishes you could shake it off, but another part of you knows that it's not something you should forget. You emerge from the dungeon, blinking in the light. The contrast between the darkness below and the brightness above is overwhelming. The heavy weight that hung in the air is gone, replaced by the soothing warmth of sunlight. But something remains with you, a sense of connection, perhaps, to the past. And as you leave the dungeon behind, you know that the stories you've heard and the sights you've seen tonight will remain with you, inescapable and unforgettable. You step back into the light, the contrast between the darkness of the dungeon and the sunshine above you almost surreal. It feels like you've just escaped from a world that was not meant for human endurance, an underworld of suffering that could swallow your very soul. The castle's walls rise like giants around you, casting long, heavy shadows that move with the slow pace of time. You pause for a moment to catch your breath, the chill of the dungeon still lingering in your chest. But then, something catches your eye. Another door. This one, smaller than the others, leads to a passageway that you hadn't noticed before. Without thinking, your feet move toward it, the pull of curiosity too strong to resist. You wonder if it was a forgotten passage, a secret door used for something you haven't yet discovered. As you approach, you can almost hear the echoes of voices, muffled and distant, like a faint whisper from the past calling you forward. The door creaks open with an unsettling noise, and you step into the narrow corridor. It's tight, the stone walls barely leaving enough space for you to move comfortably. The air feels even heavier here, thick with the weight of untold secrets. You can almost feel the eyes of those who once walked this corridor watching you, wondering why you're here, what you're doing in the very place where they were once held captive. The narrow passage leads you into what appears to be an old, unused room. It's smaller than the dungeons, with stone walls that are covered in moss and damp with the passage of time. But there's something unsettling about it, as if this room holds the answers to questions that are better left unasked. You look around, inspecting the walls. In the dim light, you spot what appears to be a faint carving, barely noticeable at first. You step closer to investigate. It's crude yet distinct, a series of marks that seem to form a pattern, perhaps a message from the past, an attempt to record something that history has long since forgotten. You run your fingers over the carving, feeling the grooves in the stone. It's a strange sensation, as though the walls themselves are communicating with you, telling you something that you're not quite ready to understand. What could this have meant to the person who carved it? Was it a desperate plea for freedom? A message to those who would come after? The questions swirl in your mind, but you know one thing for certain: you're standing in a place where history was made, where lives were shaped and forever changed by forces beyond their control. Historians have long speculated about the ways in which the enslaved communicated in secret, hidden from the watchful eyes of their captors. Some suggest that these carvings were a form of resistance, a way for the people to hold on to their identity and their humanity in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Others argue that such carvings are nothing more than the idle markings of those who had nothing else to do but mark time. Still, as you stand here, touching the stone that has withstood centuries of silence, you feel a connection to those who lived and died here. Their struggle, their hope, their resistance, it all feels so real, so tangible. You step back from the carving, your thoughts heavy with the weight of it all. You can almost hear the whispers again, voices from the past urging you to keep moving, to understand what happened here, to remember it. And yet, as much as you try, there's no easy way to grasp the magnitude of what took place in this place. No amount of study or reflection can fully prepare you for the emotion, the rawness of the history that you've just encountered. Turning back toward the passage, you make your way out of the small room, your footsteps echoing in the narrow space. As you step back into the open air, the world feels different now. The castle, the walls, the history, they all feel alive, as if they are still holding on to something that refuses to be forgotten. The air around you is warmer, lighter even, but the heaviness of what you've learned tonight will stay with you, a constant reminder that the past is never truly gone. And yet, as you look out over the sea, the waves crashing below, there's a strange sense of peace that settles over you. You've witnessed history, yes, but you've also witnessed survival. These walls, once filled with the cries of the enslaved, now stand as a testament to those who endured, to those who resisted, and to those who never gave up hope. You are no longer just a visitor here. You are part of a larger story, one that must be remembered, one that must never be forgotten. As you stand there, gazing out at the waves, the moment feels like a strange, surreal pause in time. You're no longer just walking through a historical site. You're standing at the intersection of the past and the present, your presence connecting both worlds. The sound of the waves crashes softly in the distance, an almost calming backdrop to the storm of emotions that swirl inside you. The history of this place is vast, overwhelming even, but somehow, here and now, it feels a little more manageable. You've walked through the dungeons, touched the stone that housed the stories of the past, but there's still one final chapter to this tale that lingers just out of reach. The slave castles were more than just holding grounds for the enslaved. They were pivotal points in a larger network that stretched across oceans, connecting the old world to the new. And as you stand at the edge of this history, it's impossible not to think of the ocean that stretches before you, the same ocean that carried millions across its depths, separating families, cultures, and histories. Historically, these castles were designed to be the last stop before a brutal journey. The captives, men, women, and children, were crammed into ships, their fates sealed before they even had a chance to step onto the foreign shores that awaited them. Many of them never saw the light of day again, their names lost to time. You wonder how many of them stood on the very shores you're standing on now, staring out at the ocean, unsure of what lay ahead. Some say the enslaved were told they were being relocated to new lands, their value reduced to commodities that would be traded and sold to the highest bidder. But the truth, as you know, was far darker. Historians are still grappling with how to fully tell the story of the Middle Passage, the long and treacherous journey across the Atlantic that claimed so many lives. Some accounts describe the stench of death and disease that filled the ships, others the deafening silence of people who had lost everything: home, family, freedom. What must it have been like to endure such a journey, knowing that you would never return home? That the place you had once called your own was no longer yours? But amidst the despair, there were also stories of survival. Historians still argue whether moments of resistance, however small, could have had an impact on the journey. Did the enslaved fight back? Were there moments of quiet rebellion, hidden acts of defiance that still remain untold? It's difficult to say for sure, but there's something about the resilience of the human spirit that refuses to be extinguished. In the face of the unimaginable, the enslaved found ways to resist, whether in small acts of defiance or in the strength to endure the impossible. As you look out over the ocean, it's almost as if the water itself is a metaphor for the journey, the turbulent waves representing the hardships, the unknowns that awaited the captives, while the horizon, though obscured by mist, promises a distant shore. The ship's sails may have carried them away from everything they knew, but it is the sea, vast and endless, that connected them to an entirely new world, a world that would take everything from them, yet shape the future in ways they could never have imagined. You're struck by how little the ocean has changed over the centuries. The waves still crash, relentlessly, against the same shores. Time may have passed, but the world around you seems to have stayed the same, its rhythm steady and unwavering. And as you stand there, looking out over the horizon, you realize that the ocean has witnessed everything, the stories of pain, loss, survival, and survival again. It has carried the weight of history for centuries, each wave a reminder of the lives that were carried over its surface. It's impossible to stand in a place like this without feeling the gravity of what occurred here, the enormity of what it means to be human, to experience both the cruelty and the resilience that define us. And while you can't change what happened, perhaps you can begin to understand it, to feel it in a way that goes beyond the facts and figures in textbooks. The history of the slave trade is not just a part of the past. It is woven into the fabric of our present. The legacies of those who endured it live on, not just in the stories we tell, but in the ways we remember, honor, and learn from them. The wind stirs around you, a gentle reminder that while the past cannot be erased, it can shape the future. You stand in the present, but the past is never far behind. The waves continue their ceaseless rhythm, the castle looms, and you realize that these walls, these stones, hold stories that must never be forgotten. Not just for the sake of those who lived and died here, but for the sake of humanity itself. You turn away from the sea and the castle behind you, your mind heavy with the weight of everything you've seen and learned. As you make your way back toward the gates, you carry with you the memory of those who walked these grounds before you, their pain, their resilience, their stories. And though the journey here has come to an end, the impact of this experience will stay with you, echoing in your mind long after you've left this place. You leave the castle grounds behind you, yet you can't shake the feeling that the history you've just witnessed is still following you, hanging in the air, lingering at the edges of your thoughts. With each step you take away from the castle, the weight of the past clings to your shoulders like a heavy cloak, impossible to remove. It's as though the stones themselves are whispering, urging you to remember, to never forget. As you make your way back through the gates, you glance back at the towering walls one last time, their shadows stretching long into the evening. It's hard to fully grasp the magnitude of what you've experienced. How could you? These walls, these grounds, have seen centuries of suffering, and now, all that remains is silence, a quiet echo of what was. But the silence feels oppressive, like an unspoken plea, as though the castle is waiting for someone, anyone, to hear its story, to bear witness to what it has seen. The evening sun bathes the land in a soft, golden light, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The sight is almost serene, yet you know better than to think this place is anything but a monument to tragedy. The warm colors of the setting sun contrast sharply with the cold, hard reality that was once here. You almost feel guilty for the beauty around you, for the way nature seems to have reclaimed what was lost, reclaimed the space where human lives were once reduced to nothing more than a commodity. But even in its serenity, the past refuses to be forgotten. The faint sound of the waves continues to crash against the shore, and it serves as a reminder that the sea, too, holds its own memory. The same ocean that carried the enslaved across its waters is still here, unchanged by time. The water, with its constant movement, is like the passage of history itself, never still, always moving, always changing. You feel a strange sense of connection to the past, as though the ocean is part of the same eternal cycle, one that carries both pain and survival in its depths. As you walk further away, you find yourself reflecting on what you've just experienced. You've stood in the place where history was made, where lives were irreversibly altered, where the brutal system of the transatlantic slave trade was set into motion. And yet, there's something strangely hopeful in the way this place stands today. It is no longer a place of captivity. It is a place of reflection, of learning, and perhaps of healing. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to survive and endure even the most unimaginable conditions. You think of the people who passed through these gates, those whose names have been lost to history, but whose stories live on in the echoes of the castle's walls. Historians still argue whether we can ever truly understand the full scope of their suffering. Some say we can never truly know what it was like, that the emotional and psychological toll of slavery is beyond comprehension. But others believe that by learning, by remembering, by telling these stories, we can honor those who lived and died in these places. And in some small way, perhaps that's the first step in healing, not just for the survivors, but for all of humanity. As you walk away, you find yourself considering how the world has changed, how we as a society have evolved since those dark days. The slave trade is part of our shared history, but it's not the whole story. The legacy of slavery is not just one of pain, it is also one of survival, resistance, and triumph. Those who lived through this unimaginable hardship left behind a legacy that transcends the horrors of the past. Their strength, their resilience, their unwavering spirit, they are the ones who continue to shape the world we live in today. You walk on, your mind still heavy with the weight of the history you've encountered. It's hard to know what to do with the emotions that are swirling inside you. But as you make your way back to the modern world, away from the silence of the castle, you know that this experience will stay with you. The stories of the past have become a part of you now, and though you can't change what happened, you can honor it by remembering, by reflecting, and by sharing what you've learned. And as you leave this place, you're not just walking away from the castle, you're carrying the memory of those who lived and died here with you. It's a heavy burden, but one that we must all carry if we are to move forward as a society, learning from the past and ensuring that such atrocities are never repeated. The walk back toward the entrance is slower now. The evening has settled in, and with the last rays of sunlight slipping away, a cool evening breeze picks up, carrying the salty scent of the ocean with it. You've left the castle behind, but its presence lingers with you, like a shadow that refuses to be shaken off. You feel the weight of the history here, pressing in on you from every direction. The beauty of the surroundings now feels almost surreal, an uncomfortable contrast to the harsh reality of what took place within these walls. But as you step back into the open, your mind begins to shift from the oppressive atmosphere of the castle to the world beyond it. The present. The here and now. You start to see the landscape around you, the lush greenery, the distant hills, the soft lapping of the waves against the shore, and wonder how much has truly changed. The physical world around you may have transformed, but the emotional and societal impacts of what took place in the slave castles reverberate through history, shaping not only the nations involved but also the very people who continue to live with the legacy of this dark past. Historians still debate whether we can ever truly heal from the scars left by the transatlantic slave trade. Some argue that the damage is too deep, too widespread, to ever be fully repaired. Others believe that healing is possible, but only if we are willing to face the difficult truths and have the courage to acknowledge the pain and suffering that so many endured. You, standing here in the aftermath of your visit, can't help but agree that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about confronting the past and learning from it. It's about acknowledging the weight of history, without sugarcoating it or pretending it never happened. As you walk along the path that leads away from the castle, your mind starts to reflect on the broader significance of what you've just experienced. The transatlantic slave trade, with its unimaginable brutality, may seem like something from the distant past, but its impacts continue to reverberate in our world today. The echoes of that history are felt in the systemic inequalities that persist, in the social structures that continue to marginalize certain groups, and in the painful legacy of racism that endures. But amidst all the sorrow, there is also resilience. There is hope. There is strength. The enslaved people who passed through these castles may have been torn from their homes, separated from their families, and subjected to the most brutal of conditions, but they also carried within them a strength that refused to be broken. The very fact that their stories are being told today, that their experiences are being remembered, is a testament to their enduring legacy. You pass through the gates for the last time, and the castle recedes from view behind you. The heavy presence of history that once felt so suffocating now feels a little lighter, like the burden of the past is finally being shared by those willing to listen and remember. You realize that the journey you've just taken is not just a physical one, it's a journey through time, a journey that will stay with you long after you've left this place. As you step further away from the castle, you catch sight of a few other visitors, some lost in their own thoughts, others speaking softly among themselves. Their faces reflect the same quiet reverence that you feel, an understanding that this place is more than just a tourist attraction. It's a living monument to the past, a place where we must face the truths that have been buried for too long. It's strange, isn't it? How a place so steeped in such suffering can also be a place of reflection, a place that demands we remember, not only for the sake of history but for the sake of those who lived and died here. You take a deep breath and let the evening air fill your lungs. There's a sense of release in it, a sense that you've taken in something profound and difficult but necessary. Your journey is far from over, but tonight, at least, you've done something important. You've listened. You've seen. And in doing so, you've carried forward the legacy of those who couldn't. As you walk away from the gates, the world seems quieter. The soft hum of modern life continues around you, yet there's a part of you that can't shake the gravity of what you've just experienced. The castle has receded from view, but the images and emotions from the past stay firmly rooted in your mind. It's as though the stone walls, the narrow passageways, the dark dungeons, they've all become part of your story, too. You can't leave this place unchanged. No one who walks through these gates could. The path you're following now leads toward a small hill overlooking the castle, where you can see the whole landscape laid out before you. The castle, now just a silhouette against the setting sun, seems almost peaceful from this vantage point. But you know better than to romanticize it. The history embedded in that castle, in every crack and crevice of the stone, is raw and real. You wonder what the people who were confined there thought of the world beyond their prison. Did they see it the way you do now, with the promise of freedom, of a life they couldn't even imagine? Or did they simply see an ocean that separated them from the world they once knew, a sea that could not be crossed in their lifetime? As you stand at the top of the hill, looking down at the darkening castle, a familiar question starts to emerge. It's a question that has haunted historians and educators for generations. Can we ever truly understand the depth of the suffering that took place here? And even more, can we ever move forward, as a society, without fully confronting what happened? The answers, as you know, are complicated. Historians still argue whether the full scope of the transatlantic slave trade can ever be understood by the people who weren't directly affected by it. Some say the emotional toll is too great, that the distance in time and space is too far from modern society to truly grasp the horror of it. But others argue that understanding the past is the only way to heal, to move forward. Only by confronting it head-on, by acknowledging it in all its pain and complexity, can we start to build a future free from the legacies of injustice and inequality that continue to plague us. And so, as the sun sets behind the castle, you stand still, taking it all in. The sound of the waves crashing on the shore below is almost hypnotic now, rhythmic and soothing. The air feels different, cleaner somehow, as if the very land around you is breathing a sigh of relief. Maybe it's the quiet that comes after the storm of emotion that has been building since you stepped through the gates. The world around you may be changing, but this castle, this land, will forever hold its stories. The people who passed through here, who lived and died within these walls, will never truly be forgotten. They will remain with you, as they have remained with countless others who have walked this path before. As you slowly begin your descent back to the road that leads to the town, your thoughts turn inward. The landscape around you feels familiar again, but now there's an added weight to it. The buildings, the people, the sights, everything has a new layer of meaning. You start to realize that it's not just about what you saw in the castle, or what you learned from the tour guide. It's about what you've internalized, what you're taking with you into the world. It's about remembering the past, acknowledging it, and using that knowledge to make the present and future better. The world is changing, and perhaps, just perhaps, this change is born from moments like this. The moments when we stand in the shadows of the past, reflect on the pain and resilience that shaped us, and use that reflection to make the world a place where injustice no longer thrives. It's a daunting task, but it's one that we must all take on, together. Because the past may have shaped us, but it doesn't have to define us. As you walk away from the castle for the last time, you feel a sense of closure, a quiet sense of peace. The journey is over, but the impact of this place will stay with you forever. The lessons of history, the stories of those who came before you, have become part of your own narrative. And with that, you know that the journey toward understanding, toward healing, toward change, is just beginning. As the final rays of the sun dip below the horizon, you feel a deep, resonating sense of calm wash over you. The shadows lengthen and merge with the night, and with them, the air cools, making each breath feel like it's filled with something heavier than just the usual evening chill. There's something about the setting sun and the quiet that surrounds you now, something about the way the world seems to pause in the twilight, that makes you reflect even deeper on the history of the place you've just visited. Necessary. Your journey is far from over, but tonight, at least, you've done something important. You've listened. You've seen. And in doing so, you've carried forward the legacy of those who couldn't. As you walk away from the gates, the world seems quieter. The soft hum of modern life continues around you, yet there's a part of you that can't shake the gravity of what you've just experienced. The castle has receded from view, but the images and emotions from the past stay firmly rooted in your mind. It's as though the stone walls, the narrow passageways, the dark dungeons, they've all become part of your story, too. You can't leave this place unchanged. No one who walks through these gates could. The path you're following now leads toward a small hill overlooking the castle, where you can see the whole landscape laid out before you. The castle, now just a silhouette against the setting sun, seems almost peaceful from this vantage point. But you know better than to romanticize it. The history embedded in that castle, in every crack and crevice of the stone, is raw and real. You wonder what the people who were confined there thought of the world beyond their prison. Did they see it the way you do now, with the promise of freedom, of a life they couldn't even imagine? Or did they simply see an ocean that separated them from the world they once knew, a sea that could not be crossed in their lifetime? As you stand at the top of the hill, looking down at the darkening castle, a familiar question starts to emerge. It's a question that has haunted historians and educators for generations. Can we ever truly understand the depth of the suffering that took place here? And even more, can we ever move forward, as a society, without fully confronting what happened? The answers, as you know, are complicated. Historians still argue whether the full scope of the transatlantic slave trade can ever be understood by the people who weren't directly affected by it. Some say the emotional toll is too great, that the distance in time and space is too far from modern society to truly grasp the horror of it. But others argue that understanding the past is the only way to heal, to move forward. Only by confronting it head-on, by acknowledging it in all its pain and complexity, can we start to build a future free from the legacies of injustice and inequality that continue to plague us. And so, as the sun sets behind the castle, you stand still, taking it all in. The sound of the waves crashing on the shore below is almost hypnotic now, rhythmic and soothing. The air feels different, cleaner somehow, as if the very land around you is breathing a sigh of relief. Maybe it's the quiet that comes after the storm of emotion that has been building since you stepped through the gates. The world around you may be changing, but this castle, this land, will forever hold its stories. The people who passed through here, who lived and died within these walls, will never truly be forgotten. They will remain with you, as they have remained with countless others who have walked this path before. As you slowly begin your descent back to the road that leads to the town, your thoughts turn inward. The landscape around you feels familiar again, but now there's an added weight to it. The buildings, the people, the sights, everything has a new layer of meaning. You start to realize that it's not just about what you saw in the castle, or what you learned from the tour guide. It's about what you've internalized, what you're taking with you into the world. It's about remembering the past, acknowledging it, and using that knowledge to make the present and future better. The world is changing, and perhaps, just perhaps, this change is born from moments like this. The moments when we stand in the shadows of the past, reflect on the pain and resilience that shaped us, and use that reflection to make the world a place where injustice no longer thrives. It's a daunting task, but it's one that we must all take on, together. Because the past may have shaped us, but it doesn't have to define us. As you walk away from the castle for the last time, you feel a sense of closure, a quiet sense of peace. The journey is over, but the impact of this place will stay with you forever. The lessons of history, the stories of those who came before you, have become part of your own narrative. And with that, you know that the journey toward understanding, toward healing, toward change, is just beginning. As the final rays of the sun dip below the horizon, you feel a deep, resonating sense of calm wash over you. The shadows lengthen and merge with the night, and with them, the air cools, making each breath feel like it's filled with something heavier than just the usual evening chill. There's something about the setting sun and the quiet that surrounds you now, something about the way the world seems to pause in the twilight, that makes you reflect even deeper on the history of the place you've just visited. The further you walk, the more you start to see the land surrounding the castle in a different light. What once seemed like a serene, peaceful landscape now feels like a canvas, painted with the stories of those who lived, suffered, and fought here. The rolling hills, the thick forests that line the horizon, the oceans beyond, all of it has witnessed so much. There's no easy way to unravel the full depth of what happened here, to capture all of it in a neat little package. The stories of the people, their struggles, their losses, these things cannot be fully understood by a single visit, by one set of eyes. They require a willingness to sit with the discomfort, the difficulty, of knowing that this place once bore witness to humanity at its worst. Historians continue to argue over the legacy of the slave trade. Some suggest that this dark chapter in history is one we should try to put behind us, to look forward instead of backward. Others, though, contend that we must never forget, that in forgetting, we risk repeating the mistakes of the past. As you make your way back toward the town, the steady rhythm of your footsteps matches the beating of your heart. It's a slow, thoughtful pace, one that allows you to process the enormity of what you've seen. There's an odd sense of relief that begins to settle in your chest as you get further away from the castle. Perhaps it's the weight of the history here, finally becoming something you can carry with you instead of feeling like it's pressing down on you. And yet, even as you feel that relief, you can't help but wonder about the people who passed through these gates, about their own journeys through unimaginable hardship. What would it have been like to know that your life was no longer your own, to be stripped of everything you ever knew and forced into a new reality where survival itself was uncertain? You think of the families separated here, of the bonds that were torn apart with a cruelty that few can fathom. The people who were brought to these castles weren't just commodities, they were human beings. They had names, faces, stories, and dreams of their own. But in the eyes of the people who profited from the trade, they were nothing more than property, to be bought, sold, and discarded. But amid the despair, there is something that lingers, the resilience of those who lived through this. That resilience, that strength, can't be measured by statistics or facts. It's the strength that allowed them to endure, to resist, to survive. It's the strength that carried them across oceans, through pain, and into a future they couldn't see but had no choice but to live. Walking back into town, you notice the people around you, the quiet buzz of evening activity in the streets, the laughter of families enjoying their evening meals, the children playing in the fading light. It's hard not to feel that contrast, the normality of everyday life, the comfort that most of us take for granted, and the deep, unhealed wounds that others lived through. The distance between these two realities feels vast, but it's a distance that history has created, one that we must actively work to close. You find yourself wishing, almost desperately, that the lessons of the past would somehow sink deeper into our collective consciousness. Can we ever fully change the way we view one another, remove the invisible chains that still bind us to the past? Can we heal the wounds of history, or will they always be with us? There's no easy answer, but there's a path, one that begins with remembrance, with facing the uncomfortable truths of our history, and with working toward a future where no one is seen as less than human. As the night deepens and the stars begin to peek through the soft blanket of darkness above, you take a deep breath, feeling the coolness of the evening air fill your lungs. You know that the journey you've just experienced has changed you, and though you may not yet fully understand its impact, you know that the process of reflection is only beginning. The stories of those who came before you, their struggles, their triumphs, their endurance, will stay with you long after you've left this place. And as you walk back to your hotel or home, a small part of you knows that you've done something important. Not just for yourself, but for those who have been forgotten by time. You've borne witness, and in doing so, you've carried their stories with you. And perhaps, by sharing those stories, you will help others understand, too. As the night envelopes the town, you can feel the quiet hum of life around you. There's a peace in the air now, a calm that you can't help but feel in your bones. The day has come to an end, but the journey through history has left an indelible mark on your soul. The castle may be far behind you, but it doesn't quite feel like you've left it yet. It lingers in your thoughts, in the rhythm of your steps, in the stillness of the night. The streets are quieter now, the bustle of the evening winding down. You find a small cafe tucked away in an alley, its lights glowing warmly in the cool night air. The sound of quiet conversations drifts out through the door, but it's a soft, peaceful murmur. The smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the air as you step inside, a welcome contrast to the heavy, oppressive weight of the past you've just walked through. The cafe feels like a haven, a place where the present can wash away the shadows of the past, at least for a little while. You sit at a corner table, the dim light casting soft shadows on the walls. A warm cup of coffee is placed before you, and you wrap your hands around it, feeling the heat seep into your cold fingers. For a moment, you let yourself simply exist. No thoughts of history, no heavy emotions weighing on your heart, just the simple pleasure of the present moment. It's strange how quickly life moves on, isn't it? How, even after the most profound experiences, you can find yourself settling back into the rhythm of normal life. But you know that tonight you won't forget. Not for a long time, maybe ever. The faces of those who passed through the castle gates will stay with you, the stories of their lives, their struggles, their resilience. The silence of the dungeons, the coldness of the stone, the whisper of the past in every crack and crevice. It's something that you carry with you, whether you want to or not. Historians often argue whether we can ever fully heal from the collective trauma of slavery, and maybe there's no definitive answer. But standing in the shadow of those walls, you begin to understand that healing isn't just about time, it's about remembrance. It's about ensuring that the stories of those who suffered are never lost, never erased. These stories, though painful, are essential to understanding the full scope of our shared humanity. They are the foundation on which we must build a better future. You take another sip of your coffee, the warmth comforting you. It's a simple moment, yet it carries so much weight. The kind of quiet you didn't think you would ever find after everything you've experienced. It feels almost surreal, like you've been given a glimpse into the deepest corners of history, and yet, somehow, you're still here, still moving forward, still a part of the world that continues to evolve. As you reflect on the day's journey, you can't help but feel a small sense of peace. Not because the past has been erased or because the weight of history has disappeared, but because you now know that understanding is the first step in moving forward. Acknowledging the pain of the past, sharing the stories of those who lived and died in places like the castle, is part of the process of healing. And in that healing, there is hope. The world outside is quiet now, the stars twinkling above like silent witnesses to the lives that came before you. The castle, with its dark history, still stands in your mind. But so do the stories of resilience, of survival, of the human spirit that refused to be extinguished. Those stories are what you carry with you now, and in that, there's something comforting, something deeply human. As you finish your coffee and stand up to leave, the night air greets you like an old friend, cool and refreshing. You walk back down the quiet streets, the stars above guiding your path. The history you've witnessed today will stay with you for a long time, perhaps forever. But now, with each step, you also carry forward a new understanding, a deeper awareness of the past, of those who lived and died in the castles, and the importance of remembering their stories. You may have walked through the doors of the slave castle today, but you've left with something far more valuable: an understanding of the past, an acknowledgement of the pain and resilience of those who came before, and a promise to remember, always. The walk back to your accommodation feels different now. The night has fully settled, the cool air wrapping around you like a blanket, yet it doesn't feel like the embrace of comfort. It's the embrace of something much deeper, a quiet reflection of everything you've just experienced. The sound of your footsteps against the cobbled streets seems louder now, each echo a reminder that you're moving forward, away from the castle, away from the dark stories that it holds within its ancient walls. But the past remains with you, etched into your thoughts, impossible to escape. You pass by the townspeople going about their evening routines, their voices blending together in the soft background of your thoughts. It's a sharp contrast to the quiet, stifling silence you encountered in the castle. Here, in the town, the world feels alive with the normalcy of modern life, as if time has carried on, indifferent to the weight of the history you've just uncovered. And yet, the more you reflect, the more you realize that none of us are truly untouched by the past. That distant history is never as far away as we'd like to believe. It lives on in the world we see today. The inequalities, the divisions, the way societies still grapple with the repercussions of a history that hasn't been fully reckoned with. As you walk through the town, you start to notice the subtle, almost imperceptible ways the past lingers in the present. The architecture, the names of streets, the attitudes and behaviors of people, they are all shaped by a history that, while buried in the past, is still very much alive in the here and now. The journey to understanding history, to truly understanding it, never ends. You don't just visit a place like the slave castle and walk away unchanged. You carry it with you. You are now a part of that history, and that history is a part of you. You stop at a small bench in a quiet corner, the world around you continuing its nightly rhythm. The sound of distant voices and the occasional vehicle passing by fills the air, yet here, in this small corner of the town, time seems to slow. It's as if the world knows that you need a moment to process, to make sense of everything you've seen. You sit there for a moment, letting the cool breeze wash over you, giving your mind time to reflect on the weight of the past you've just uncovered. Historians often say that we must confront our history to move forward. It's not enough to simply acknowledge it. We must wrestle with it, understand it, and learn from it. It's a long, difficult process, one that requires courage, one that demands uncomfortable truths. But it is through this uncomfortable process that we find growth. It's through confronting the past that we can start to heal the wounds that are still visible in the present. Healing isn't easy, and it isn't quick, but it is possible. As you sit there, you think about the lives of the enslaved people who passed through the castle gates. Their stories, so many of them forgotten, lost to time, but still lingering in the walls of that castle, in the stones that remain, they are not gone. They are here, with you, with all of us. And the fact that their stories continue to be told, continue to be remembered, is a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. Even in the face of unimaginable hardship, even in the face of a system built to strip people of their humanity, the human spirit refused to be extinguished. The wind picks up again, and with it, a new sense of calm washes over you. You take a deep breath and close your eyes for a moment, letting the night embrace you. The cool air is refreshing, and in it, you find a quiet kind of peace. The castle, the dungeons, the pain, and the loss, they are all still with you. But so too are the stories of survival, resistance, and the will to endure. They are the legacy that you carry forward. The town around you continues to move at its own pace, unaware of the weight that you now bear. But you know that the journey you've taken is not one that can be forgotten. Not by you. Not by anyone who has walked through the gates of that castle, who has taken the time to understand the history that has shaped the world we live in. The night is deepening, and you rise from the bench, ready to continue the journey. The castle, the stories, the faces of those who lived and died there, they are all with you now. As you walk back toward your accommodation, you understand that the journey through the past is never truly over. It continues to shape you, to inform the choices you make, to influence how you see the world. And in that understanding, you find a new kind of resolve. The past has not been left behind. It is carried forward, one step at a time, in the stories we tell, in the choices we make, and in the way we choose to move forward together. The cool night air wraps around you as you continue down the dimly lit path back to your hotel. The streets are quieter now, the sounds of laughter and conversation from earlier fading into the distance. The only sound that remains is the rhythmic tapping of your footsteps against the cobblestone streets. It's strange how something as simple as walking can feel so different after experiencing what you have today. You feel almost as though you're carrying the weight of history with every step you take, the knowledge that the stories of the past, once hidden in shadows, are now a part of your own journey. As the castle fades from sight, the town begins to feel more familiar again. The modern world encroaches upon your senses. The flashing lights of a distant shop window, the soft hum of a car engine passing by. It's all so ordinary, and yet it feels disconnected from the enormity of the history you've just encountered. The contrast is jarring, almost too much to bear. It's as if you've stepped between two worlds, the one you know, filled with the comforts of the present, and the one you've just left behind, filled with the weight of centuries of suffering. You find yourself wondering about the lives of those who lived in this town, those who lived before, and those who continue to live here today. How many of them are aware of the history that lies just beneath the surface, the history that shaped the very place they now call home? Do they walk these streets without a thought to the lives that were once confined in the castle, the lives that passed through its gates, never to return? It's a sobering thought, that history can exist so quietly, tucked away beneath the layers of daily life, unnoticed by most. Yet, as much as the past lingers in the back of your mind, there's a sense of hope that begins to emerge slowly but surely. The past, with all its pain and tragedy, is not something we can undo. But it's also not something that we must carry forever with a sense of hopelessness. There's power in remembering, in acknowledging the darkness, and allowing it to inform the light that comes afterward. You can't change what happened, but you can choose how you move forward. Historians continue to argue about the best way to handle the weight of history. Should we focus on healing and moving forward? Or should we dwell on the past and ensure that the stories are never forgotten? Some say that we should push forward, leaving behind the painful chapters that have no place in the modern world. Others argue that the past must remain in the forefront of our minds so that we can learn from it, so that we can avoid repeating the mistakes of previous generations. Perhaps it's both. Perhaps healing comes not from forgetting but from confronting what was and ensuring that we never allow it to happen again. As you approach your hotel, the weight of the day starts to feel a little lighter. The cool air, the quiet town, the soothing rhythm of your footsteps, they all begin to settle you. The castle and the history it holds may still be fresh in your mind, but the world around you is alive, filled with possibilities, filled with people who are doing their best to make a difference in a world that is still haunted by the legacies of the past. You walk into the hotel, greeted by the warmth of the lobby, and you feel a wave of exhaustion settle over you. It's the kind of tired that only comes from deep reflection, from confronting the most difficult truths. As you make your way to your room, you reflect on the journey you've just taken, not just through the castle but through time. The world is different now, both within you and around you. You've seen the past with a clarity you never had before, and you carry it with you now, a part of your own personal history. Lying in bed, you stare at the ceiling, letting the events of the day replay in your mind. The castle, the stories, the faces of those who passed through its gates, they are all still with you, lingering in the quiet of the night. And yet, as you drift off to sleep, there is a sense of peace. The past has been acknowledged, and though it may never be fully understood, you've taken the first steps toward understanding it. And in that understanding, there is a sense of purpose, of hope, of a future that is built not just on the pain of the past, but on the lessons we learned from it. Tomorrow will bring new experiences, new stories, new lessons. But tonight you rest with the knowledge that you've honored the past, and with it, the people who were lost but are never truly gone. They live on in the stories we carry forward, in the ways we continue to fight for justice, and in the ways we choose to remember. The next morning dawns soft and gray, the early light filtered through a mist that clings to the earth like a veil. The world outside your window is still, as though it too is taking a deep breath, holding on to the silence of the past. You rise slowly, feeling the weight of the journey still heavy in your bones, though you've slept, finally, for the first time in what feels like a long time. The quiet of the night allowed you to reflect, to process the history you've encountered, and though the weight of it remains, you can already feel the faint stirrings of change within you. As you prepare for the day ahead, you think about the contrast between your own life and the lives of those who once walked through the gates of the castle. The warmth of the bed beneath you, the quiet comfort of a modern hotel room, the simple luxury of choosing your own future, they all feel like foreign concepts compared to the pain and the loss that once defined this land. You wonder how the enslaved would have felt in their last moments in places like the castle, knowing they were about to be taken far from everything they knew. Would they have had hope, or would they have simply resigned themselves to their fate, praying for a miracle that would never come? You step outside into the crisp morning air, taking a deep breath as the mist swirls around you. The streets of the town seem less busy today, as though the world itself is still processing the day before. It's quiet here, and though it feels almost like a different world from the history you've just witnessed, you know that the echoes of the past are everywhere. Every building, every stone, every tree bears witness to what came before, to the lives that once shaped this land. The people around you, going about their daily routines, have no idea what lies beneath their feet, but you do now. You can't help but feel a sense of responsibility as you walk through the town. You're no longer just a tourist, no longer just a visitor. You've seen the past, and it's now part of your journey. You've learned something that most people don't know, or don't want to know, and with that knowledge comes the weight of remembrance. The castle isn't just a historical site, it's a place that demands to be remembered, a place that demands that we never forget what was done here. The day unfolds slowly, and as you walk through the town, you find yourself thinking about the broader implications of what you've experienced. It's not just about the castle or the people who were once held there. It's about the lasting impact of slavery, the way it has shaped societies across the globe. The scars of the past are not just historical facts, they are alive in the systems of inequality, in the divisions that still exist, and in the everyday lives of people who are still struggling to break free from the chains that were forged centuries ago. You stop in front of a small museum dedicated to the local history, a simple building that seems to blend in with the rest of the town. It's quiet here too, and as you step inside, you're greeted by the sound of a guide speaking softly to a group of visitors. Their attention is focused on the exhibits, and you can tell that for them, this is just another stop on the tourist trail, another piece of history to be glanced at before they move on to the next site. But for you, this place feels different. This museum isn't just a place to look at artifacts, it's a place where the past continues to live, where the stories of those who suffered are being told, one visitor at a time. Historians argue that museums like this are crucial in preserving the memory of the past. But there are always those who question the ethics of tourism in such places. Is it right to profit off of pain? Can we truly learn from the past if we reduce it to an attraction for the curious? It's a difficult question, and as you look at the faces of the visitors around you, you can't help but wonder if they truly understand the weight of the history they're witnessing. Are they seeing what you saw in the castle, or are they simply checking off another box on their travel itinerary? The guide continues, speaking about the local history and the role the town played in the broader context of the slave trade. You listen intently, absorbing every word, but the weight of the question still lingers in your mind. Can we ever fully grasp the enormity of the past, or is it too vast, too painful, to fully comprehend? You realize that it's not just about understanding the facts. It's about feeling the history, about letting it sink into your soul, about carrying it forward and using it to shape a better future. As the day continues, you find yourself contemplating what it means to move forward, to learn from the past without being consumed by it. Can we reconcile with the history of slavery without forgetting the pain and the loss? The answer, you realize, is complicated. But it starts with remembrance. It starts with acknowledging the past, no matter how difficult, and using that understanding to create a more just and compassionate world. The people who were once held in the castle, the families torn apart, the generations affected by the slave trade, they will never be forgotten as long as we carry their stories with us. You head back to your hotel as the sun begins to dip once more, and though the day is ending, your journey isn't over. The history of the past will continue to shape you, to inform the choices you make, to influence the way you see the world. And in that there is hope. There is change. There is a future, and it's one that we all must walk toward together, carrying the weight of history and the promise of a better tomorrow. The final day of your journey is here, and with it comes a sense of quiet reflection. The castle now feels like a distant echo in your mind, a place where the past and present collided in the most visceral way. But as you make your way through the town one last time, you realize that the impact of your visit hasn't just been about understanding history. It's been about the internal shift that occurs when you confront uncomfortable truths. You've carried the weight of those truths, and as the sun rises on your last day, there's a subtle, but profound, sense of responsibility that lingers in the air. You've been a witness to something important, and now you are charged with passing that knowledge forward. The day starts slowly, the sun filtering through the morning fog as the town wakes up to another day. The streets are quieter than usual, with fewer people on the move. Perhaps feeling the same reverence that you do for the place you've just visited. In the quiet, you find yourself moving with a sense of purpose, as if this is more than just a journey through a foreign town. This is a journey through yourself, through your understanding of the world and how the past continues to shape the present. As you make your way to the local market, the sounds of daily life start to filter in. The hustle and bustle of the morning routine, merchants setting up their stalls, the scent of fresh bread in the air, the hum of casual conversation. Yet, beneath this everyday activity, you feel the weight of the past pressing in once more. The town may seem peaceful, but the history embedded in its foundations, both visible and invisible, is undeniable. You stop for a moment, watching the town go about its day, and you reflect on the people who once lived here, whose stories are intertwined with the land. How many people still carry the legacy of those who passed through the gates of the slave castle? You realize that this is not just a local history, it is a global one. The ripples of the past stretch far beyond the shores of this town, affecting countries, communities, and individuals across the world. The effects of the slave trade are not confined to the pages of history books. They continue to shape the world we live in today. Walking through the market, you pass by a stall selling handmade goods, artifacts crafted with care, bright with color, and filled with life. You pick up a small trinket, something simple, but it feels important. It's a piece of the present that connects you to the past, a reminder that even in places marked by pain and loss, there is still beauty, there is still life, and there is still hope. The stall owner greets you with a smile, and you return the gesture, exchanging a few words about the town and the products they're selling. As you converse, you realize that this is part of the healing process. People, both in the town and in the world at large, are finding ways to move forward. They are embracing the lessons of the past and using them to shape a better future. The struggle for justice, for understanding, for equality, it continues, and it's something we all must engage in, each in our own way. Historians, scholars, and activists will continue to debate the best way to reconcile with the past, to ensure that the horrors of slavery are never repeated. But as you stand here, in this quiet market, you understand that the process of reconciliation isn't just about policies or grand gestures. It's about small, everyday actions. It's about remembering, acknowledging, and carrying forward the lessons of the past in everything we do. It's about the choices we make, the conversations we have, and the ways in which we interact with the world around us. With the sun now high in the sky, you make your way back to the hotel, the day slowly coming to a close. Your thoughts are still filled with the castle, with the stories you've heard, with the lives you've learned about. And as you walk through the streets, you realize that the journey doesn't end when you leave this town. The stories you've encountered here will stay with you, shaping the way you see the world and interact with it. Tonight, as you prepare to leave, you will carry these memories with you, not as a burden, but as a call to action. The world still carries the scars of the past, but it also carries the possibility for change, for understanding, and for healing. The castle you visited is no longer just a place of suffering, it's a place of remembrance, a place where the past can be acknowledged and used to shape a better future. As you prepare to leave, you can't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for the lessons you've learned, for the stories that have been shared with you, and for the chance to bear witness to a history that can never be forgotten. The journey is over, but the impact of it will stay with you. And as you make your way back to your own life, you will carry the lessons of the past forward, sharing them with others, keeping the stories alive for as long as you can. Now, the evening is drawing to a close, and you prepare for the journey home. The castle, the people, the stories, they will always remain in your heart, a reminder of the past, and a call to build a future that honors it.